welcome the leader of our party and the next Prime Minister, Jeremy Corbyn.
For all the arm-waving bluster of the Prime Minister this morning, what came out of it very, very clearly is this. There is no plan to deal with Brexit. There is no plan to deal with the crisis in public services all across Britain. There is no plan to deal with the climate emergency that this country and our planet absolutely faces at the present time. But what there is very clear from his leadership campaign and the contest he had with Jeremy Hunt is that they do believe in taxation. They do believe in reducing taxation for the 1%, for the very richest. The tax giveaways they promised of billions will mean that whatever they say about our health, our schools, our public services is frankly not achievable. And behind that, of course, is the idea of a special trade deal with the United States. They talk about this all the time. Having looked at the way in which President Trump does his trade deals, the way he's done his trade deals in North America and the ones he's forced on every other country, he is totally about America first, or at least a percentage of America first. What would happen on a trade deal with Trump would be, we'd be told to open up our markets to American products, we'd be told to open up our public services to American products, we'd be told to have investor protection for American companies coming into Britain, and despite his denials today, I firmly believe that the US administration would insist on access to our health market, as they call it. In reality, it's our NHS. Our NHS, let's be clear about this, was founded by far-sighted people, by this party and all those that helped to make up this party, on the principle that healthcare should be free at the point of use on the basis of your need for it, not your ability to pay for it. And I want to lead a Labour government that will defend our NHS and extend our NHS and get the contractors out of our NHS and ensure proper employment standards all across. But I also want to take that principle a bit further and establish a national education service that will also take the commodity out of education and instead insert the right to learn, the right to know, the right to teach. That is what a Labour government would achieve. And then you look at the cabinet that he assembled overnight. Well, it's the most hard-right cabinet I've ever seen. A cabinet united only in its determination to protect the inequalities and injustice and lack of opportunities for so many young people in left-behind working-class communities all across Britain. It will be a Labour government that will invest properly across the whole country. It will be a Labour government that will pay proper wages. It will be a Labour government that will invest in the decent, good, high-quality jobs for the future. And that is what we're determined to do. But we're also determined to make sure there is no cliff-edge Brexit on the 31st of October, where we'd crash out of the European Union, be told that we had to accept total free market economics and the economics of Donald Trump. We'll challenge them over there in the House of Commons, we'll force it to vote over there, but in reality the vote we need is a vote of the people, both to reject Brexit and to elect a Labour government for the future. But to achieve that we have to campaign, because as you probably noticed, some of the media are not particularly keen on the Labour message getting through. In fact, very unkeen on the Labour message getting through. So let's start with a simple one. If you know somebody who would like to vote, just like to vote, make sure they are registered to vote. In the last election campaign, there was one website that never said anything about registering to vote. That was the Conservative Party website. I really wonder why. The efforts of so many young people using social media and the old techniques of door knocking made sure hundreds of thousands, nay millions of people registered to vote, often for the first time. I can't predict when a general election will come, but I do know the basic building block of that is getting people to register to vote. And also, when a Labour government's elected, we'll reduce the voting age to 16 so that young people will get their chance to vote. But it's also about the campaigning work that we do. Our community organising all over the country are taking the message out to all those communities and towns across Britain of what can be achieved. The bottom-up development of our policies, so that we have housing policies that do build council houses, that do restrict the private rented sector, that do give young people the hope and the certainty they will get somewhere to live. And when Tories grandly tell me that they're doing a lot about homelessness, you don't have to walk very far from this Parliament Square to meet homeless people all over central London, begging to find enough money to get into a night shelter. You see similar demands made all across this country in bus stations and railway stations all across the country. Take a reality check for a moment. We're the 5th richest country in the world. What is it that we're not able to house everybody? Is it anything other than inequality, injustice and greed that puts us in that position? And the jobs that we're determined to create, the jobs that we're determined to create through a sustainable development policy, sustainable economics. We do live in terms and times of a climate crisis. The Extinction Rebellion have led the way on this, and well done to all of them. Well done to them for their excitement and the verve and the way that they've raised the issues. The number of species that are going to be extinct in the next few years unless we do something about it is truly frightening. But 60% had already gone during my lifetime alone. This damage to our natural world, to our ecosystem, to our climate, to our rivers, to our land, to our seas, can only be dealt with by a completely different attitude. That you make things sustainable, you use technology to create the cleaner water, the cleaner air and the cleaner transport that's possible. And you create jobs through a green industrial revolution in exactly the same way that our friends and comrades in the United States are pushing for exactly the same thing. A green industrial revolution that will protect this planet for the future. And it is about how we undertake that campaigning. We live in a society and a continent where the racists are on the rise, where the racists are trying to divide us, and they use all the arguments and all the nastiness and evilness that was there in Germany in the 1920s when they blamed the Jewish minority for all the failings of the Weimar Republic. That blaming of people because of their faith, their ethnicity, their language, or where they come from, doesn't lead anywhere other than to a horrible cycle of anger, hatred, violence, murder and despair. The only way forward is of unity of peoples in opposition to any form of racism whatsoever. Be it anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, be it the far-right racism, or be it the homophobics and all the others that would seek to divide our society. Let's be proud of our diversity, proud of our differences, and united in our strength to live in a world where we respect that diversity and in unity can begin to improve things. So the pledge cards that we're sending out, the campaigns we're mounting all this summer are about defending our NHS and extending our NHS and confronting and dealing with the mental health crisis we face also. They're also about wage levels in Britain, frozen since the coalition government came in. And don't forget, the Liberal Democrats supported the coalition government. The Liberal Democrats voted for that budget. The Liberal Democrats voted for the freeze on benefits. The Liberal Democrats voted to treble tuition fees. So we will raise the minimum wage for all workers, including young workers, to at least £10 an hour by 2020. And at the same time, repeal the Trade Union Act and give workers the right to organise at work in order to improve their standards and living conditions. And we will have that green industrial revolution. So parts of the country that have seen no investment since the end of the miners' strike will get the investment necessary through our National Investment Bank and our regional funds. They will get what is needed. That is investment for the future and hope for young people. But in saying hope for young people, I say this: we live in a society that's so divided. A baby born today, you can almost predict which college they're going to get to, which university they might get to, where they might end up working. I'm fed up with the inequalities and injustice and way in which the system operates in this country. So we will make sure all small children get 30 hours a week free in a nursery together. We will fund primary schools properly so head teachers don't have to go on fundraising courses in order to be a head teacher. And we will make sure that every child in every primary school gets a free school meal eaten together, so they grow up together being properly fed. For older people, this government has been particularly vile, particularly vicious. There's more than 1 million waiting for social care. There's those that are worried about the future of their transport. There are those that are now being told over 75 they're going to lose their free TV licence. Sorry, Prime Minister, this one, last one, any other. It's the responsibility of government to provide it. Don't pass it on to the BBC. Make the decision yourself and say there will be free TV licences for all over 75s. And keep the winter fuel allowance. And we will do everything to stop a no-deal Brexit. We'll do everything to stop the type of Tory deal that may be in Boris Johnson's mind at the present time. But we also believe that at the end of that process, any deal and we'll find it that we find unacceptable, we think should go to a public vote to decide on the future relationship with this country and Europe in the future, the principle being of protecting jobs, protecting living standards, and ensuring we're able to live in a world where we get on with our neighbours and don't rely on Donald Trump. And I'll finish with this point. Our world has many people that sadly are labelled as refugees, 65 million of them around the world. And there are wars going on at the present time, and many of those refugees are themselves victims of other wars. I want to lead a Labour government where our principles are human rights, the rights of refugees, the rights of human beings, and treat people as human beings, not as something you can oppose and denigrate in the way in which many far-right politicians do. To achieve all these things, our party comes together, our party campaigns all this summer. I shall certainly be out on the railway lines all over the country getting that message out there. And I urge you to do the same, because we don't need more blustering, no answers, flag waving and all that, and the impossibilism of tax giveaways to the rich while pretending you can fund something else when you've taken away the very basis on which you could invest for the future. Do you know what the better answer is? Have a general election, elect a new parliament, elect a Labour government to bring people in our country together, to tackle the inequalities, to conquer the injustices, but above all, to mobilise the strength and excitement, optimism and vitality of our people together. Together, there's nothing